If a stranger told you the whole world was a fraud and you were living in a computer simulation, would you believe them? Many scientists, including several prominent and otherwise respectable people, have begun claiming that we live in a computer simulation being run by aliens. We'll discover their motivation for saying this and why this claim is not merely incorrect, it has absurd implications, and ultimately it denies science itself. Coming up on today's edition of Origins, do we live in an alien simulation? With Spike Psarris. Hello, welcome to Origins. I'm Ray Heiple. We have a fascinating show for you today. Our guest, Spike Psarris, has a degree in electrical engineering and has done graduate work in physics. He was formerly an engineer in the United States military space program. He is an author and popular speaker on astronomy and related topics. Spike founded Creation Astronomy and has produced many fascinating videos defending a young Earth view as related in the Bible. Spike, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
We are going to be talking about alien simulations in this program. You know, we're breaking new ground today. So I'd like to know, what do you mean by alien simulation?
Alien simulation theory is an increasingly popular idea, as we'll see, that the world that we live in isn't real. It seems real, but really we're just living in a computer program being run by aliens. A simulated universe.
And this is science. This isn't like, you know, Steven Spielberg's movie.
Right. It's claimed to be science.
To be science.
We're going to examine that claim to see if it really holds up. But just to make the point that this is an increasingly popular idea, it's certainly coming out in the culture a lot. There's lots of articles that you can find if you look for these sorts of things. Scientific American said it's confirmed that we live in a simulation. All these other articles saying similar things. Neil deGrasse Tyson, celebrity and astronomer, says it's very likely that our universe is actually a simulation. And I'm just showing some examples here. There's plenty more we could talk about. But even some very respectable scientists are saying this now. This is Dr. Richard Terrell is a NASA scientist, astronomer and director of the Center for Evolutionary Computation and Automated Design. He's giving a presentation here asking the question, are we living in a computer simulation? And in 2016, there was a debate on this topic where Neil deGrasse Tyson hosted a panel of scientists discussing this idea. So this isn't some fringe idea that only some interesting characters are talking about. These are very respected figures in science, seriously proposing this as an explanation for what we see. And what is their motivation for doing this? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about on this show, and we'll see if their claims about this are valid. Do we actually live in an alien simulation? Well, the Bible, of course, says that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So as Christians, we would expect to live in an ordered universe that makes sense. Number one, that's not a computer program. It's a real physical universe created by the Lord and that we live in and is created for that purpose, also to declare His glory and other things. And indeed, when we look in the world around us, we see a lot of evidence for design and fine-tuning. The earth has a lot of aspects of design, aspects of it that had to be finely tuned in order for life to be possible here. The fact that it's covered with water, which is very important in supporting life, and there's entire ecosystems within it. Whereas secular ideas about where the earth came from, claiming that it formed from a cloud of gas billions of years ago, actually predicts that the earth shouldn't have any water on it. Our planet has a magnetic field that protects us from radiation from space. Our rotation period of 24 hours per day is just right to avoid temperature swings as we move in and out of the area of sunlight. Our axial tilt produces moderate seasons. The orbit around the sun is almost perfectly circular, which means we're receiving an even amount of energy from the sun throughout the year. Our atmosphere is not too thin and not too thick and just has just the right composition to support life, give us air to breathe, protect us from radiation from space, while at the same time not producing a greenhouse effect, which would be harmful to us. On and on it goes. Many, many aspects of the Earth are finely tuned to support life. In fact, entire books have been written just on that one subject, very rich area of study. But even looking out elsewhere, our moon has a lot of design features. It raises beneficial tides in the Earth's oceans to help circulate ocean water, prevent it from going stagnant, which would be harmful for life. Its orbit stabilizes the Earth's axial tilt. It's positioned so that every so often it can come between the Earth and Sun and produce a solar eclipse. It has just the right combination of size, distance, and orbit to be able to do that. Very, very unusual, very, very fine configuration in order for that to be possible. Even our entire cosmos shows evidence of fine-tuning. Our sun is actually a very stable star, very unusual among stars. You could argue it's unique, because even solar-type stars, even the stars that are most like our sun, frequently erupt in superflares, which would sterilize any planet caught in the path of such a thing. Our sun doesn't do that, and nobody from the secular side can understand why. On and on it goes. There's all these aspects to the Earth, to the sun, the solar system, our galaxy, the cosmos itself, very, very finely tuned. Now, apparent design would seem to argue for a designer. But of course, the secular side rejects that as a potential explanation. So I'm going to go up to the board for a minute, and we'll talk about this a little more.
Okay.
So where did our cosmos come from? Secular scientists tell us that it formed in a Big Bang event some 14 billion years ago. And this is a graphic from NASA that shows this overall model and how it all supposedly happened. So in the very beginning of time, there was a quantum fluctuation of the vacuum that then produced a universe, which then immediately began a period called inflation, where it blew up explosively in size much, much faster than the speed of light. Now, if that seems like a strange concept, hold that thought, because it is. Subsequent to that, after some almost 14 billion years or so of expansion, we have the universe as it is today. So we are told. But the key to this whole thing is that early period of inflation. Now, what would possibly cause a universe to blow up at multiple times the speed of light? They tell us it's caused by a particle called the inflaton. But what is an inflaton? Has anyone ever seen an inflaton? And the answer is no. Is there any room for an inflaton within the standard model of particle physics? And the answer again is no. It's this mathematical thing that's been made up in order to save the Big Bang model from certain of its problems. Specifically, there's three major predictions that the Big Bang model makes that are not seen in the world around us. For example, the Big Bang model says the universe should be filled with what are called magnetic monopoles, which are particles that are magnetic but only have one pole, either north or south, but not both, like a bar magnet would, for example. The model says we should see a lot of those in the universe, but we don't see any. The Big Bang model also says there should be major temperature differences in the cosmos as we look from one region to another. But looking at the CMB, which this is a map of, the cosmic microwave background radiation, this radiation is supposed to be the afterglow of the Big Bang from billions of years ago. But the model's predictions of major temperature differences in between different places are not seen. The entire universe is at almost exactly the same temperature as seen in the CMB. This is called the horizon problem, and it too, all by itself, is enough to discredit the Big Bang model based on the data that we see. Another issue is called the flatness problem. The Big Bang model said the universe should have strong curvature in one direction or another, but it doesn't have any, apparently. Our universe is flat to a very fine degree of precision. So these are three major problems for the model. Each one by itself is enough to discredit the model. They're that severe. But secular scientists realized that with this period of inflation early on in the universe's history, they could in various ways explain all of these issues. So if you believe in the Big Bang model, therefore, inflation would seem to be required. The issue that it's this hypothetical process with no real basis in physics is a problem that often gets swept under the rug. Once inflation was introduced into the Big Bang model, a while later people realized, wait a minute, once inflation starts, we can't figure out a way it would ever turn off. For various reasons that we don't need to get into, once inflation begins, it'll be eternal. Now, for this universe, inflation would have stopped, and then expansion would have slowed and supposedly develop into the universe we see. But behind the scenes, so to speak, inflation would continue, spawning off bubble universes forever. Therefore, there's an infinite number of universes having bubbled off from this inflationary process all through time. So Big Bang model, taken to its logical conclusion, says that there's been a continuous production of quote-unquote bubble universes just endlessly spawning forever, eternally in the past, and will continue to do so eternally in the future. This, therefore, would produce what's called a multiverse, which is a combination of the word multiple and universes. So you may have heard of the idea that there's a parallel universes or multiple universes, that we only live in one. That's where this concept comes from. Now, a lot of people immediately say, wait a minute, how can there be more than one universe? The universe is everything that there is. Well, the word has been redefined in this context. A universe now means everything that we could possibly perceive or observe. So even with the best possible technology, the best theoretical equipment we could even imagine constructing, there are limits to what we could observe. And so everything we could observe is in this universe. Everything outside is part of these other universes, the multiverse. So there's an infinite number of universes out there if this whole idea is true. And remember, this whole idea is being driven by problems with the Big Bang model. To explain away the problems, they need inflation, but inflation will be eternal, which will produce all these universes, an infinite number of which, but they all are not visible to us. Now, this has a lot of strange implications. For example, if there's an infinite number of universes out there, well, if you're a secular scientist who doesn't believe in God, then you think reality is just matter in motion. We just consist of particles moving around, interacting with other particles. So that being the case, if there's an infinite number of universes out there, there's only a finite number of ways you could arrange a bunch of particles. That means any specific arrangement is going to be out there an infinite number of times, if there's an infinite number of universes. So what does that tell us about us? Well, as this article points out, is there another copy of you reading this article? A person living on a planet called Earth, with misty mountains, fertile fields, and sprawling cities in a solar system much like our own. The life of this person has been identical to yours in every respect. This is you, has lived the same life, same memories, all the rest of it, but it's just a different copy of you. You probably find this idea strange and implausible, yet it looks like we'll just have to live with it, since the simplest and most popular cosmological model today predicts that this person actually exists in a faraway galaxy. If space is infinite and the distribution of matter is sufficiently uniform, then even the most unlikely events must take place somewhere. This is a very key phrase, and I'm going to come back to this one. Even the most unlikely events must take place somewhere. In particular, there are infinitely many other inhabited planets, including not just one, but infinitely many, with people with the same appearance, name, and memories as you. They are you, just out there an infinite number of times. Indeed, there are infinitely many other regions the size of our observable universe where every possible cosmic history is played out. Now, secular scientists like this, despite the strangeness of this proposal, because they think it gives them an explanation for what they call the illusion of design. They admit the cosmos looks designed, but they don't want to accept the designer, so they say, well, it looks designed, but that's an illusion. There's no actual design going on here. It just worked out that way. So there's all these other universes out there that are unobservable to us by definition. Well, if all these other universes are unobservable, what kind of explanation is this? All these other universes by definition are outside of the natural world that we can observe, that we can perceive. What word do we use for something that's outside of the natural?
Supernatural.
Supernatural, because that's what the word means, right? Super means above or beyond or outside of the natural. So the multiverse is by its nature, by definition really, a supernatural explanation to try to evade the implications of apparent design in the one universe that we can actually observe and see. When you take the multiverse theory, the multiverse hypothesis, if you will, to its logical conclusions, you see that it has absurd implications. And the key is this phrase here, that even the most unlikely events must take place somewhere. The multiverse is actually inherently self-contradictory if you think about it. The Bible tells us, you shall know them by their fruits. So looking at this secular way of thinking, we can see the logical implications of it and see the fruits of their models. And if the fruits are good, that would imply that the thinking is good. If the fruits are bad or absurd, that tells us that the original model was bad or absurd as well. So we can look at the implications of this whole way of thinking and ask, is this really science or is it just science fiction? For example, this author says, our universe may be the offspring of some other universe out there in the multiverse. Baby universes fluctuate into existence in both directions of time, eventually emptying out and giving birth to babies of their own. On ultra-large scales, such a multiverse would look statistically symmetric with respect to time. Both the past and the future would feature new universes fluctuating into life and proliferating without bound. Key phrases here, both the past and the future. Each of them would experience an arrow of time, but half would have an arrow that was reversed with respect to that and the others. Now, is this science?
Oh, wow.
Or is this just science fiction?
Yeah.
This author said, there are infinitely many other regions the size of our observable universe where every possible cosmic history is played out. Well, what does that mean? That means that, among other things, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock are now real people. Even if you think about it, different universes spawning off as a result of the inflationary process, some scientists have pointed out that they could have different laws of physics in each universe. Now magic is on the table too. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, that's all happening out there an infinite number of times, according to multiverse theory. This author wasn't talking about the multiverse specifically, but the logic still applies. He was saying that as we explore other regions, we should be careful as to what we run into. He said such life forms that we might encounter as we explore could well be advanced versions of dinosaurs if mammals didn't have the good fortune to have the dinosaurs wiped out by an asteroid collision as on Earth. We would be better off not meeting these advanced dinosaurs. Yes, because there's nothing worse than running into a dinosaur that has better weapons than you do, right? And who's responsible for all this anyway? This author says it's proposed that our universe was created by life of superior intelligence existing in another physical universe, in a different universe out there in the multiverse. Intelligent beings might possess not only the knowledge to design, but also the technology to build universes. So if the multiverse is real, somewhere out there, there's universes where aliens have gotten advanced enough technology to create entire universes of their own. This explains why the constants of physics have their observed, finely tuned values, and might even help us to understand why our universe is comprehensible to the human mind. So that's why the universe looks designed, not because God did it, but because aliens did it. Now, is this science, or is it just science fiction? Others have taken this idea one step further. This author said, perfectly serious by the way, it is a perfectly acceptable supposition that the world as we know it is a vast computer program run on machines built by an intelligence we know nothing about in a universe that could be like any of the ones we speculate about or one that is totally strange and alien. If you accept the multiverse idea, it is almost inevitable that there are computer-based universes out there. Somewhere among the universes there would, in all probability, be universes where civilizations had developed far enough to produce a Matrix-style universe. Chances are we do live in a computer simulation of a universe, and there's mathematical backup for this statement from their way of thinking.
Spike, I'm going to have to stop you right there. You don't want to miss what's next. We've been seeing how the multiverse has all sorts of absurdity with regard to reality, but can the multiverse actually make reality unreal? That's what we're going to talk about next after these messages.
We hope you're enjoying Origins TV. It all started at Cornerstone Television in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We've been producing new episodes for over 37 years now. We praise God for the success of the program and are excited to introduce you to Origins and to us. If you're interested in watching more episodes of Origins, you can find them on our YouTube page. Simply go to YouTube and search Cornerstone Television Network. Click the like and subscribe buttons, then you'll find the best episodes of Origins in our playlist. You can also visit our website at ctvn.org/origins. One more way you can stay connected with us is to subscribe to our free monthly Hope Today newsletter, which you can do from our website. And if you have any questions, call us here at Cornerstone Television at 888-665-4483. We'd love to connect with you. Thank you for watching.
Welcome back to Origins. We're talking to Spike Psarris, who's been sharing about do we live in an alien simulation. Spike, we've seen, and I can follow and understand the idea that if an infinite number of realities are possible, then all realities are not only possible, but actual. They have to have happened because you have this time that goes on forever and everything must play out, including dinosaurs driving tanks, as we saw.
Right.
But does this concept not only make possible again, but does it actually necessitate that reality itself isn't real?
Yes, it does, actually. It's one of the logical implications of this. So let's just do a brief recap of what we were talking about. Secular scientists want there to have been a Big Bang 14 billion years ago. Big Bang is contradicted by multiple lines of data. To preserve the Big Bang from the contradictory data, cosmic inflation is proposed. But inflation, besides being outside of physics, also would produce an eternal process of inflation, producing endless number of universes, thus producing a multiverse, so there's an infinite number of universes out there. And within the multiverse, now we're back to where we were before the break, if there's a multiverse, as this author said, it's almost inevitable that there are computer-based universes out there, and chances are we live in a computer simulation of a universe. So why does this logically follow from everything we've talked about so far?
I'd say the only thing wrong with that statement is you got to get rid of the almost. It is inevitable.
Pretty much, yes. And there's actually a mathematical line of reasoning for this if you accept all of their assumptions to this point. Why is that? Well, think about our civilization. We can make computer simulations now. Since we've developed computers, how many simulations has humankind made? I mean, some large number, right? Whatever that is. Let's say there's billions. So one real civilization has produced 3 billion, whatever the number is, simulations. Now, from the secular point of view, they think that eventually an alien civilization out there in the multiverse is going to evolve, develop the ability to computer simulate universes. How many computer simulated universes will they eventually produce? Billions and billions and billions. So now you and I wake up in a universe one morning. What are the odds of us living in a real universe versus a simulated universe?
Infinitesimal. We have to be in a simulated alien program.
If the simulated ones outnumber the real ones billions and billions to one, then odds are we're going to be in a simulation. It may seem that we're in a real Earth, orbiting a real sun and a real galaxy and a real cosmos, but it's not true. We're really just part of a video game being played by some alien somewhere.
A really high definition one.
Really high definition one, yeah. But this is the logical implication of their way of thinking. Now, this may seem silly to us, but there's actually scientists seriously studying this. This study here actually got government funding. So our tax dollars are going toward figuring out if we live in a computer simulation being run by aliens. Now, if, however, there's aliens that are capable of simulating a universe, there's also aliens capable of simulating a universe that contains aliens that can simulate a universe. So maybe there's multiple layers. As this author said, in all seriousness, there could even be multiple levels of simulation. The computer our universe runs on could be itself a simulation on another computer. So it's not merely that we live in a video game being played by aliens, they also live in a computer game being played by other aliens. And why stop there? Maybe those aliens are part of a video game being played by aliens that are part of a video game being played by aliens that are part of a video game. Well, you get the idea.
Wow, it's like standing in front of a double mirror and you just keep seeing.
I don't know how it goes. But is this science? No, this is science fiction. But it's the logical consequence of their initial starting point. So if the logical consequence of something is wrong or absurd, then that tells you your starting point was wrong. And since this line of thinking leads to absurdity, that tells us that the starting point is wrong too. But nevertheless, some respectable scientists, as we saw, are endorsing this whole idea. Why would otherwise intelligent men and women embrace an idea with such absurd consequences? Well, here's why. If there's only one universe, you might have to have a fine-tuner. If you don't want God, you'd better have a multiverse. The Bible says that the fool has said in his heart that there is no God. It also says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not calling these scientists fools. They're very intelligent men and women. But when you deny the truth, whatever it is you wind up believing is going to be a lie. When you deny the foundation of wisdom at the beginning of your model, whatever it is you wind up believing is going to be foolishness. And that's where secular scientists have found themselves today. One last item to talk about. Secular scientists reject God, but many are accepting these alien programmers, these alleged alien programmers. What are the characteristics of these so-called programmers that are responsible for our universe? These alleged alien programmers are, if you think about it, omnipotent. I mean, a programmer can control everything within his simulation, within the program he wrote, right? So an alien could step in and control and change every aspect of our universe that they wanted to at any time, arbitrarily. A programmer will also be able to know what's happening everywhere in a simulation in the program that he wrote. So this alien programmer is omniscient, right? He's also omnipresent because he can be everywhere at once, so to speak, and step in and alter anything at any point in this universe that is simulating. What do we call a being that's omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent?
That is what God is.
That is a God. What's the difference between this alleged programmer God and the God of the Bible?
The God of the Bible exists.
The God of the Bible exists, and the God of the Bible is holy.
Yes, yes.
So I think this is interesting. Secular scientists say they reject God because it's an unscientific concept. They're perfectly comfortable embracing the idea of a God.
A self-made God.
Self-made God.
That they don't have to answer to.
That they don't have to answer to. That's the key difference.
Spike, I want to thank you for being on this program.
Thank you for having me, Ray.
And I want to thank you for joining us. On today's show, we considered the very popular notion of multiverse, and we saw that it makes every absurdity not only possible, but necessarily true. Not only that, but if you accept that there is no God, you must accept that you have an infinite number of copies of yourself living in a computer program run by aliens or germs. The Bible says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God." We have seen that verse confirmed in these latest pseudo-scientific dreams. It just goes to show you that we know what the Bible says is true, and the proof really is all around you. If you enjoy Origins, we sure could use your help to keep this Creation television program on the air. Your support, both prayerfully and financially, make a big impact. So let's work together to reveal how awesome our Creator truly is. And we'll see you next time right here on Origins.
Thank you for watching this edition of Origins. For a DVD of this series, you can order online or send a $12 donation to cover shipping and handling, and write to Origins Program number 2506, Cornerstone Network, Wall, Pennsylvania, 15148.
This presentation was made possible by the faithful prayers and financial support of you, our Cornerstone family.